On, guys, thank you for joining us. We're here for the Monday night show on the 21st of September 2015. It is myself, Paul. We have Colin and Ryan with us as every single week. So, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
What I will say before we get the show started, as people will know for the last few weeks, we've had a new template in the background. That will be changing after tonight's show because I've deemed the box on the right hand side utterly useless and the box in the middle too small. So basically I've spat my dummy out and we will be editing that. So bear with us for tonight's show. It's not the greatest graphically, but hopefully you still enjoy our ranting and Colin's knowledgeable talk and Ryan. So, yeah, we're going to start just quickly looking at the UEFA Champions League, Colin, which happened this week. Midweek, Real Madrid started with a 4-0 victory over Shakhtar. Sorry.
Oh, Shakhtar Donetsk.
Yeah. You have PSV 2, Man United 1. I'll run through them all, and then we'll go back and talk about them. Man City 1, Juventus 2. PSG 2, Man 1 0, Wolfsburg 1, CSK 0, Benfica 2, Astana 0, Galatasaray 0, Atletico Madrid 2, Sevilla 3, Mönchengladbach 0, Roma 1, Barcelona 1, Dinamo Zagreb 2, Arsenal 1, Olympiacos 0, Bayern 3, Chelsea 4, Tel Aviv 0, Leverkusen 4, Bate Borisov 1, Dynamo Kiev 2, Porto 2, KAA Ghent 1, Lyon 1, Valencia 2, Zenit 3. So, I think the first place to start is with Ryan, actually. Sad news about Luke Shaw. I think, I assume he won't be tuning in, but if he is, we wish him a speedy recovery.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah, great, Ryan.
You can see he's a clear miss straight after when he's got injured. Excuse me. Straight after when he's got injured, Dele Blin's gone to left back. As much as people say he can play left back, he's not a left back in my opinion. He's not got the pace. The pace of Luke Shaw just went missing, and psychologically, Man United were just downhill from then on.
I think, let's be honest, Ryan, when they say that Blin can play left back, I mean, obviously he's left-footed, he's very versatile, but I think it's more that he's just that type player that you kind of say, oh yeah, he can play there. And it's just literally for everything. They'll need a striker soon. Instead of Flynn, they'll just go, well, Blin can play there, you know. But he's not a bad player. I'll try to avoid coming to you too much tonight, Ryan. And people who obviously tuned in last week will know Colin hosted the show because I was sat in the background dying. And now this week it's Ryan's turn. So, Colin, you will be ill next week.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
yay!
Just a heads up. What I will say is, obviously, Moreno, who did the tackle on Luke Shaw, he turned up, he apologised. He must have meant it sincerely because he's gone out and injured somebody else this weekend, which is always interesting to see that he's basically learnt his lesson. But I think first things first, away from the tackle, Colin, the fact that Man United went down to a hard-working PSV side, I don't think anyone saw them actually losing the game.
No, this wasn't one I had picked Man U to lose. I actually figured they'd go in, 2-0, maybe even almost a 3-0 in this one. I was impressed. Obviously Shaw getting hurt completely changed the character and aspect of the game for Man United. They were just sort of deflated from there. But I think PSV earned it. I think they played hard, they worked hard, they pushed, and they weren't going to let some bigger squad come in and shove them around. So, interesting victory for them. Makes the group a little more interesting. Obviously, the return leg at Old Trafford has now become a lot more important for Manchester United. And obviously, points in the group stage are key. So this is a big one for PSV to help keep their continental aspirations going.
Definitely. We'll just quickly point out the Manchester City situation, Ryan. Going down 2-1 to a struggling Juventus side in the Italian league. So obviously they've come up, stepped up for European football, but again, Man City just didn't turn up, didn't play well. Obviously, if you look back as recent as 1999, they've obviously in the third tier of English football, and they're now playing in Europe and can't seem to get up for it.
They're yet to challenge in any top European competition outside of the Premier League. So you're hoping that they can step up. I would expect them to be beating Juventus, but Juventus are a top team. They've got top players, and Man City just fell asleep in that game.
It was disappointing. I mean, we're just going to quickly run through the Champions League. So we want to get on, obviously, and talk about the Premier League's action. So, I mean, just looking down the list of results, Colin, obviously Roma won, Barcelona won. That's, I wouldn't say an upset because Roma are on a bad side.
No, and Rome's a difficult place to play. So obviously Barcelona going in, they haven't exactly been lighting up the nets left, right, and center either. So going into a very difficult place to play against a very well put together and well upgraded side from the offseason in Roma. So I don't think that result was a terribly big surprise to me. I think in terms of interesting results, as far as I was seeing, there's two big ones that sort of stood out to me. One, Mönchengladbach can't get out of their own way, but we'll talk a little bit more about them later when we get into Germany. But the one that's more interesting to me is 3 of the 4 English sides dropped week one, in match day 1 here.
Well, I think. Sorry, go on, Colin.
I was going to say, I think if you combine that with what's going on in the Europa League, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the FA is making phone calls to English clubs here at some point, telling them they're going to need to get their act together a little bit. They dropped, after the playoff rounds, they dropped coefficient now down into 3rd place. So they're, the Germans are now the 2nd league in there, and a really, really good year in the Europa League and the Champions League from the Serie A, and they could very much so find themselves down in, down a Champions League spot.
I think we spoke about this in midweek, and we did say it's so disappointing to see when they stepped in Europe, they just not turn up. I mean, I know Arsenal aren't in top form, but Dynamo Zagreb, they were winless in 15 Champions League proper games. They hadn't won a game in the group stage since September 1999 against Graz, and then they turned Arsenal over 2-1. That shouldn't be happening. No. Ryan, I'm sure you, when you see that result coming across your screen, you just don't expect to be seeing it.
I think he dropped out on us.
No, there's actually, what I will say is, just so people know, actually, Ryan has completely dropped out on us. There was an issue where Ryan couldn't hear Colin when Colin spoke, but yeah. What I will say is, unfortunately, people will know that there's an issue with Skype this evening, which we normally use to communicate, and it's down across the world. So we're using brand new software this evening for talking, and it appears to hate us, Colin.
Well, at least it hates Ryan.
Well, yeah, it doesn't hate us. Coincidentally, it's Ryan again. So yeah, I'll ask you, Colin. Arsenal slipping up in Croatia shouldn't be happening.
No, not at all. I think that was a game where Arsenal should have clearly gone in and won. I think you can see from the weekend's action, there's a lot of frustration and irritation going on in that locker room, and I think it boiled out a bit onto the field in the weekend's action. But yeah, in no way, shape, or form should a Croatian, not against Dinamo Zagreb, because they did play well, but there was no earthly way they should have come in and beaten up on Arsenal like they did.
I think Giroud obviously got sent off in the game. He's been getting criticised in front of goal. I think it's a blessing in disguise how he's been sent off, so it means they don't have to use him. I don't know if you agree on that, Ryan.
Yeah, he's not, well, not to say he's not good enough, but he's not been good enough as of late. So maybe they'll find somebody else to play up front.
Yeah. What I will say is obviously there's been a lot of hype about Ruben Loftus-Cheek. 93% pass accuracy, and made third amount of passes in 60. Beating Tel Aviv 4-0. It's kind of expected, wasn't it? I mean, you're not going to, no matter how much poor form Chelsea have been in, you're always going to expect them to turn Tel Aviv over, and that's what they did. Loftus-Cheek took his chance. Obviously, he had a lot more space than he maybe would do in a Premier League game, but you can only play who you're playing, Colin.
Yeah, you can only you play the hand you're dealt. I thought the interesting stat was I think if I remember correctly, that Loftus-Cheek had more Champions League starts than all but 3 or 4 players from Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Wow.
On there, which I thought was pretty entertaining. But yeah, you're coming in against a side that's more or less on the periphery of this kind of a level. They're traveling into Stamford Bridge. This is a big game. Obviously, Chelsea are always up for Champions League play. So scoreline in that doesn't surprise me. Chelsea took advantage of what they had. The game probably could have been worse, but it was. I was surprised a little bit with the number of guys on the bench. For Mourinho, I guess he's sending a bit of a message to the squad that seemed to have worked. So
yeah, definitely.
Good week for them.
I'll just quickly run through the Europa League. Don't really want to sit on that. Ajax 2, Celtic 2. Great point for Celtic, but I suppose they thought they could have got the victory being 2-1 up. Tottenham 3, Qarabag 1. Qarabag actually took a 1-0 lead with a penalty. Soft decision, but Tottenham played quite well. Bordeaux 1, Liverpool 1. A bunch of kids turned out for Liverpool mainly, and they didn't do too bad. Fenerbahce 1, Molde 3. Shock of the round, I think, for a Norwegian side to go to Turkey and destroy them on the counter-attack. Anderlecht 1, Monaco 1. Apoel 0, Schalke 3. Asteras 1, Sparta Prague 1. Bilbao 3, Augsburg 1. Partizan 3, AZ Alkmaar 2. Sion 2, Ruben 1. Dortmund 2, Krasnodar 1. And Quabala 0, PAOK 0. I'm glad when some of them teams go out.
You did well there.
Thanks, Ryan. It's nice to see Sion getting the victory over Ruben, because I'm obviously a team who was owned by quite a rich owner a few years ago, and they now don't really have the financial backing, so it's nice to see them getting a victory. People might remember famously Gattuso was the manager a couple of years ago. But we'll move on to the Premier League. The reason we love football, I think, isn't it? Well, and some other leagues, me and Colin are enjoying the Bundesliga more and more.
Yeah. Most weekends, it's the reason we love football.
Exactly. Let's start. Chelsea 2, Arsenal 0, Diego Costa 1, the Premier League 0. He's now been obviously charged with misconduct, which is nice to see, Ryan. Van conduct. It's nice to see because the amount of times they get away with it, and you kind of think they're going to get done for this, and nothing comes of it.
Yeah. Is it one of these players? I don't think I could play against him. He's just a wind-up merchant, loves to get in people's face, always nagging. Whenever he's fouled or you'll go down, you could touch him with the feather and he'd be injured. So something needs to change with him.
In terms of how he performed at the weekend, he definitely went over the mark at times. His style of play I don't mind, because it's kind of what I kind of like to see it, because it does wind the opposition up and it kind of gets them off their A game. They kind of get distracted and they always try and get their own back on him almost. But he definitely went over the mark. But Arsenal was so poor, and they'd only had 2 people sent off. I'm sure I saw a stat that they'd only had 2 people sent off in the Premier League. And I don't know how far back they were claiming, because with the likes of Patrick Vieira, surely they've had more than 2. And honestly, I don't know if they just rhymed a random stat off on TV and they were hoping no one picked up on it. But I'd love to know if that was correct. But if it is, then that's only the 4th red card they've had in however long they were going back. I'm genuinely not too sure exactly what the stat they rhymed off, but they said when Arsenal got the first red card, they said that's only the 3rd red card in the Premier League for Arsenal. I was thinking, well, they can't be talking about this season because we're only a few games in. So I'm unsure. If someone knows in the chat, let us know. Just quickly say good evening to Matt, to Bert, and Daniel. Obviously, I've said hello in the chat too. So yeah, Chelsea 2, Arsenal 0, and again, the game's actually not even been discussed. I've just mentioned Costa, then the red card. So Colin, John actually mentioned the game.
So I caught highlights of some of it.
Oh yes, what did you do this weekend, Colin?
I spent some quality time on my bicycle. So while we're on that one, just a big thank you for the stream and for everyone who did donate. That was a fun and exciting time. My legs are now thoroughly sore and achy, and I'm enjoying sitting on a nice soft couch.
Fantastic. Checking highlights out. So go on, what did you think of the game?
You can clearly tell that there's a lot of frustration brewing in Arsenal, and Chelsea knew how to just fire them off. You could tell there was definitely an agitation to the game, and they paid for it. I think Chelsea outplayed them. They looked poor. They came off of a blousy game midweek, and they paid for it on that one. So hopefully we'll have to see what Wenger does this week to get them ramped up and cleaned up and ready for next weekend. But something was broke. This was a bad week and a tough 2 games. I mean, obviously you could tell that midweek both squads were focusing on this match much more heavily than the midweek Champions League action. But
Arsenal wish they didn't bother. No.
Yeah, that's more where I'm thinking is that I don't think, I think Arsenal wishes they had 3 points in the Champions League and at least they could hang their hat on that. Now they've got nothing in the Champions League and they got smashed by their obnoxious neighbor that they can't seem to get one over. And that's going to be done for a while.
I think Arsenal need to take a long hard look themselves, because when you go through the Chelsea team, Hazard was non-existent. Then you go through, Ivanovic did not play well. He looked scared. Every time he got the ball, he was cutting back. He was looking for the easy option. And you kind of go through the team. Fabregas looked like he was back on point. His passing was a lot better. So my ultimate team's going to start to benefit hopefully now. But they didn't look fantastic, and yet they still controlled the game. I know people said Cazorla shouldn't have gone off. I don't know what game they were watching because his tackle was late. That was deserved of the card, so it happened. But we'll move on to the next game, which was Aston Villa 0, West Brom 1, Ryan. And obviously, looks like I don't have to do the dance or the sing which we agreed to the other week, because Berahino stayed at West Brom and he's managed to get himself a goal now, though.
Yeah, it has been a situation well handled by Tony Pulis. I'm just trying to think of the manager then.
I do like the fact that Pulis turned around and said he's had a lot of grief recently, which he probably deserved.
Yeah, and he's gone and played him. Berahino scored, and I think this situation will just be brushed under the rug now.
I think it's annoying, and kind of it shows the power of a footballer when that is the situation, though. The fact that he's done what he's done, he's abused who he's abused in the club. I mean, the fact that he insulted the chairman or the owner, and the fact that he said he wouldn't play for the club again, and the way he handled himself. I mean, he came across, as I've said before in previous weeks, like a complete utter idiot. And he still seems to hold all the cards that he's kind of spoke again and went, go on then, I'll play again. And he may well use him.
But I think it's more business sense, as West Brom know if they play him, he scores more. He may go in January, they'll get a bit of money for him, whereas if they don't play him, he's not scoring goals, and he could go, well, you've not played me, you sell me for less.
Yeah. Colin, do you want to hear a beautiful stat, which I assume Ryan's put in this?
Absolutely.
16 of Berahino's 20 Premier League goals so far have been scored in the West Midlands, 14 at the Hawthorns and 2 at Villa Park.
Well, so if I was going to pony up to buy him, I'd make sure that my schedule was very geographically specific.
Maybe if we go regional, it'll become a great buy for the West Midlands clubs.
Yeah, apparently.
What's going on at Villa, Colin? Because genuinely, I think they've made some decent signings. They look like they've got some good players, and they're just not doing well at the minute. Is Tim Sherwood getting found out tactically?
Yeah, I don't want to say that I think it's Sherwood, but I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's Sherwood. I think, I just don't think he's that right level of manager. I think it's a little tactically naive. That they're not making great adjustments. They're relatively static. I agree. I thought they had a dynamite transfer window for the club. I thought they did some good moves, brought some quality in. The squad's got some decent players, but I think they're just getting carved up and found out by more savvy squads.
I think Tony Pulis tactically worked it well. He knew what he was going into, set up to sort them out, and he's done well. The next game was Bournemouth 2, Sunderland 0. I think this was a game obviously Bournemouth would have been rubbing their hands at, knowing they were coming up against a team who's in desperate trouble. A fantastic goal, maybe possibly one of the goals of the season, contender Ryan, from Matt Ritchie.
A fantastic goal.
I think
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's fairly decent, wasn't it? a bit of swaz on there as well, Colin.
Yeah, no, I was impressed, and I agree. I think walking into this game, Bournemouth coming off of points that I'm sure that they felt they should have been able to pick up against Norwich there, had to have been just chomping at the bit to get in here and try and even it back a little bit. And they punished Sunderland. This was a good game and a good atmosphere, and they beat a very lousy team that doesn't look like they belong in the Premier League. So, good win for Bournemouth on that one.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because we've jumped through a few of the games quickly, we've clawed back enough time ready for the Newcastle-Watford discussion. Now, this will be fun because obviously we've got one of our regular listeners listening back during the week is Fox in the Box, who's a Watford supporter. And he's been a bit upset with my comment about Watford recently. So, as it was discussed on Twitter, they're all just personal opinions. Everyone's entitled to them. But hopefully he'll be a bit more impressed this week. Because, obviously, I watched the game, being a Newcastle fan. And do I start by criticising Newcastle, or do I start by praising Watford? I think we've got to praise Watford for the first half, Ryan. I think first half wise, Watford are the best team I've seen in the Premier League this season. They completely dominated in terms of possession, in terms of quality, finishing wise. Igolo is just a class above at the minute, which I think they need, because Troy Deeney as a player for the team, he's working really hard, but is he proven to be a Premier League goal scorer? Not yet, which I think is apparent by the amount of goals he's got. But in terms of a worker for the team, he's obviously linking play fantastic. The movement of Watford, Colin, in that first half, the passes, especially to the first goal, the composure around the box, the composure across the whole team was unbelievable to watch. It was impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, I think they looked very good. Watford looked the side. They were well put together. They were well organized. They were well disciplined. They played with intensity, with energy, with intent, and they played against a side that looked like it had better things to do than be there. And they took advantage of it. They took their opportunities and earned a very well deserved victory.
Yeah, first half they were class above. Well, Newcastle wise, could we have got back into it? Yes. When the game was 0-0, we should have had a penalty. Cisse was pulled back. It's not up for debate. It was a penalty. But unfortunately wasn't given. He still should have tucked it away, in my opinion. He literally just stabbed the ball. He didn't put any pressure behind it. He then had another opportunity where all he had to do was hit the target at least, and he didn't even hit the side netting from maybe 12 yards out, just on a slight angle. which was just head in hands moment, thinking if you can't shoot from there, just get off the pitch. Janmat looked decent. Torvan, he showed moments. Sissoko was played more central, Ryan, which was nice to see. Nice to see. I think we've discussed in the past that Sissoko should be given a bit more of a chances behind the striker, but he just did nothing, Ryan, for the game. He was so disappointing.
Yeah, I think most of the Newcastle team were disappointing in that game, but it's been the same throughout the whole season, really. Newcastle haven't really been impressed. They're defending. I can't remember what Shearer said on Match of the Day, but he wasn't impressed either. Can you blame him?
It's frustrating. I mean, second half, Watford tired. They didn't attack as much. They didn't look as in control. We started pushing them, which it's going to happen. We were the home side. Watford couldn't sustain that amount of pressure for the whole game. Otherwise, they would be a Champions League side. That's the difference, isn't it, between them top and the teams just behind the top, is how much they pressure. And you could see Watford tired near the end. And we just couldn't capitalise. We had a couple of attacks, but we just looked clueless when we got in that final third. And there was a point where Watford's right back could have actually slotted one away as he could inside. They still managed to hit us on the counter-attack. We just weren't covering back. We weren't defending. Going forward, we didn't look clinical. It was it's so frustrating to watch. Coming up, we've got Chelsea and Man City next, so at the minute, there's no chance for us getting points out of that, and I'd be surprised if we keep it bloody in double figures against Man City, for example, if we don't start sorting ourselves out. It needs to be sorted out. Watford's second goal, for example, Colin, and remember in the middle, all he had to do was keep running back to the line. He could have slid and cleared it, but once Adegolo picked up the ball and went round Tim Krul, he's just jogged past the penalty spot. Now, he was in line with him, so he could have at least attempted to get back. I'd rather see him sliding into the goal, Colin, trying to win the ball.
Yeah, well, I think that was one of those cases where you'd like to see somebody doing something. I mean, at the most part, it looked like everybody was kind of dancing around watching, and Ingolo was just running around, on a training pitch on that one. I think the biggest thing I see is there's no life in Newcastle. There's no energy. There's no intent. There's no will. They don't even look like they really want to be there.
No, I mean, I've just stuck the table on the screen now for people who are watching, just so you can actually see. Now we've discussed about Newcastle and Sunderland. You can see we're sitting bottom there with 2 points. It's frustrating, Colin.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think this gets any better for a while. Obviously, the stretch of games coming up is pretty brutal. And while West Ham showed that Manchester City's got some vulnerabilities, I don't think Newcastle's the next squad up that's going to exploit them. No, I don't know what they do, but something's got to change there. Somebody's got to jolt the crowd, do something to that squad to get them to want to play.
Something I did see point out the weekend, which is something I definitely agree with, is I don't want to see them coming in when these stupid freaking tuxes and stuff. I want to see them coming in when the team's training kit or something, just coming in looking like you're ready to play football, not like you're ready to get your picture taken. I want to see them coming in looking like they're ready to play, coming in boots in the hand, tracksuit on, ready just to stick some shorts on and go and play. They're coming in like they're literally ready to go on a night out as soon as they finish playing, and it's really frustrating, Ryan. Maybe if they're kicking some ass, they can do that, but not now.
Things definitely need to improve in the next 2 games.
Yeah,
if you pick a point up,
pick a point up, and
you never know.
If we pick a point up, I'll sing any song you want live on this bloody show.
That's alright, we'll hold you to that.
You can hold me to that. If we pick a point up, I'll come on singing. The next game, look, I was Stoke 2, Leicester 2, and again, Ryan, Leicester came back.
They did. I think the story of this game is if Leicester kept a clean sheet, Claudio Ranieri was going to buy the team pizza.
Yeah, I heard that.
I think if Stoke kept a clean sheet, the manager was going to buy something else. And then they asked Crystal Palace, Alan Pardew, if he kept a clean sheet, he would buy them something else, but not pizza, because apparently pizza's not very good in the Crystal Palace area. Very strange situation. But on the game point, Leicester again going down 2 goals, coming back. That fighting spirit that is in Leicester at the moment is just scary. Eventually, I'm hoping they'll just drop off, go away, and not be a side to worry about. Because when they play Man United, if last season's to go by, we struggled against Leicester. So they can drop off now.
I hope you lose.
It'll be helpful.
I think Leicester definitely look good, and they've got some fantastic players in there. That Algerian Mahrez Colin is a great player, and he seriously looks like such a good talent.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting sort of perfect storm going on in Leicester City. I think they showed that you can buy wisely and put together a talented enough squad to sit in the Premier League, that you don't have to go and throw, hundreds of millions of pounds out there to assemble a competitive squad. To be fair to that, though, I think Ranieri's the missing piece to that puzzle. Obviously, when you put a manager of that skill and that level in, you can take a squad that's a good squad and make them better. I think without him, I think we're looking at Leicester City as a lower, sort of the midpoint of the bottom of the table, that like 13th, 14th level spot. You put them in there, and I don't know, there's something there. Will they hang out as high as they're hanging out in the table? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see a Leicester City Champions League bid here, or even a Europa League bid out of them this season. I think they will tail off as the season gets a little longer. But I still think they're going to be hanging around. I think that they're doing enough to be safe, and this is an interesting project. I'm curious to see, get these guys in there, get them some experience with this, and to see what happens. I'm curious.
He is curious, Ryan. I think that came across.
I'm curious too, because I think me and you both, we said that Ranieri coming in, known as the Tinker Man, we said, laughable, Leicester are going to do terrible, and we're now eating our own words.
What I will say is I watched Nigel Pearson on Goals on Sunday, and nobody come across us. So I think Leicester did well getting rid of him. I know he seemed to talk about how my team spirit, the team was so happy, the team loved us. We had good banter in the dressing room. That's one of the awful words he used. And he just come across as such an idiot. I genuinely couldn't believe it. Every time he said the team loved him, I was just thinking, yeah, sure. Also, I watched him on telly now, going, thank God he's gone. The next game, Colin, was Swansea 0, Everton 0. I think it was a better game than 0-0. Kevin Mirallas got sent off. It was a stamp. He went in, obviously, just wasn't stood high, really, was it? It was just going in like a stamping motion. I mean, we've all done it when you play football. The amount of times I've gone in like that. You go in to kind of just stamp behind the ball to kind of just make sure you get it, but it's a red card for anything now, isn't it?
Well, I think that one, we've talked about it, so far on the show a couple of times. I think that's very much so one of those, you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to ask an official to make a judgment call on what you were doing. And more often than not these days, you're going to lose that judgment call. I understand what he's doing. Did it look as bad as, a straight red card? Probably not.
I think the problem is, Colin, is it's the motion of he wanted to kind of get himself to turn the other way, and I can see what he was doing, because I used to do it all the time as well. Is you go to put your foot behind the ball so you can push yourself to go. But the problem is when you're going in like that, it does look like you're literally stamping on the person, but you're kind of just trying to put yourself in between them. And if you leave a little bit on the opponent, then unlucky to him. But unfortunately, as you're going to say, you can't do that now.
Well, I think it's you give the official the decision, and he's going to look at it. And some games I think you'll come out with maybe a yellow or nothing at all, and like this one, you're going to get bagged with a red because perspective says it looks really bad. So I think it's a mental thing. Don't put yourself in those spots if you don't have to, and you'll come out better for it.
I think don't put yourself in them spots if you don't have to. It's so tough. I feel for Kevin Morales because I don't think it was that bad. Let's be honest, I don't think I'd last long before red card Ryan in the Premier League.
No,
just mint somebody first game.
Either your voice would let you sent off, or your aggressive tackling probably.
Yeah, it's a good job the referees were crap where I used to play. Next game, Ryan, was Man City 1, West Ham 2. It almost was unexpected.
Almost, but West Ham, like I've said on previous shows, can surprise the big teams. They are not a team to be pushed over and lay down, even though in this game, Man City dominating 72% possession. It's for anybody who complains in the future about Football Manager and you controlling possession, you've not won the game. Just go look at the stats for this game. 72% Man City. West Ham win 2-1.
Happens all the time. It's just people complain when it happens to them in Football Manager because they don't think it's realistic. Happens all the time in football, doesn't it? The amount of teams. I mean, look at Barcelona, no doubt, controlled quite a lot of it against Roma. Man City control quite a lot of their games now, especially with this change in formation. Chelsea do the same and have sometimes slipped up with draws and defeats.
But I think the key to it is, and a lot of people groan about it, but if you watch, City had possession, but it wasn't total, right? West Ham was able to pick it up on their counter, collect a little bit, give themselves some period of time to breathe, get themselves reorganized and go. I think where you end up with these batterings or when the possession is just relentless and the defenses aren't able to organize and you just get pulled to pieces tactically. But by being able to break it out a little bit, transition, and obviously put some pressure and score some goals, you give you give your back lines what they need to relieve.
I think what I will say from the game, Colin, I just want to ask you your thoughts on De Bruyne. His goal, the first touch, I think, was more beautiful than the finish. The fact he left foot control, Colin, but it wasn't just a control. It was literally set out inch perfect for him to finish with his right.
Yeah, I think that was a very nice crystal clear glimpse of getting paid for or what they paid for with him. Obviously he's an immense talent and that was a display that he has the ability to do that. Just take a situation and just make it.
Colin appears to have gone to the other interview's room, Ryan.
He appears to have to the moon.
He appears to have picked up his microphone. He's trying to eat it.
No, I'm not.
He's back. Keep still, Colin. Stop moving.
Okay.
Colin, I want to ask you about Son Heung-min. Now, before you come to Tottenham, us Football Manager lovers and for yourself watching some German football, you might have seen him at Leverkusen. But he looks a real player. It looks like Tottenham have got themselves a player who's going to help Harry Kane in the goal-scoring department as well.
Yeah, goodbye. Very goodbye.
Why are you leaving? You're saying he's a goodbye. People will love that joke. Guarantee at least one person laughed as I said that.
Yeah. The interesting part for me now is, okay, so he can score goals. I mean, if you watched him at Leverkusen, yeah, he can score goals. What I'm most interested about at Tottenham is, can Pochettino get he and Kane playing well together and get them both scoring goals? Because it's very clear that the entire Premier League has figured out that all you got to do is batter Harry Kane around and he won't score goals on you. So
I've got to say, Harry Kane doesn't look bad though. He's not playing bad. He's just not scoring.
I don't think he's playing badly, but he's clearly marked tighter. He's clearly closed down harder. He's clearly tackled more aggressively. I mean, he's focused.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the guy came in and scored a lot last year, and he's clearly focused on. So I think the interesting part will be is if Son starts scoring, Premier League defenses are going to have an interesting question now of what the hell do you do with both of them? And if you start making mistakes, one of the two of them will make you pay for them. So I think it was a very good buy for Tottenham, and it'll be very interesting to see how they work together up front.
Something to look forward to. And also, obviously, Tottenham beating Crystal Palace, so Pardew, loser. Ryan, Liverpool 1, Norwich 1. What's more impressive, Norwich getting the point, or the fact that Russell Martin travelled all the way back to Norwich for the birth of his child on the morning of the game, drove through the night, then quickly flew back to Liverpool after the birth for the kick-off?
Both equally impressive feats.
Quite impressive, isn't it?
To do that, I think I'd be knackered.
Middle of the night, he drove from Liverpool to Norwich.
That is a long, long way.
It's definitely impressive that he's done that, and I think it shows dedication of the cause and the fact that he's gone and got the goal to become the top goal scoring defender in the Premier League at the minute this season. Daniel Sturridge made his first start. I mean, Colin, does this say how desperate Liverpool are that when Sturridge has declared himself fit, within days he's through straight into the starting 11?
I think this is a situation where Rodgers is throwing anything he can throw at this. This was a game Liverpool in no universe should have come out of here 1-1 on. I don't know what's going on up there, but something's clearly not right, and I can't imagine that the patience is going to keep lasting. This is, my guess is the push for Rodgers to go is going to have picked up in earnest this weekend and is going to get louder if something magical doesn't happen. I was really surprised as well with this result, given the fact that Rodgers clearly favored the competition on the weekend over the Europa League when he sent most of the academy to play in France there. So you can't go in and say, well, most of the squad was tired or beat up from playing on Thursday night. No, that can't possibly be. So I'm not sure what in the hell is going on at Anfield, but my guess is come January, somebody else is going to be sorting it out.
I think so. If it continues, I think so. Now, people who listen to the show each week will know that Ryan makes himself notes each week, basically just to help with if there's any such like that. Dan was a grab one that I round off during the Champions League review. Now, Ryan, are you sat comfortable here?
Oh yeah.
Yep, I have to read this out. This note I'm going to read out start to finish. Are you ready, people? Everyone sit back and listen to Ryan's beautiful note here. Sturridge's first contribution was a backheel flick to play in James Milner, but there was nothing slick about the 26-year-old's combination with Benteke. Oh dear. That's a note and a half. His first contribution was a backheel flick to play in James Milner, but there was nothing slick about the 26-year-old's combination with Benteke. Both strikers showed heavy touches as Liverpool laboured in front of goal, although Sturridge did force John Ruddy into a save with a powerful left-footed strike. Quality, Ryan. I love that. When I was reading it, I just had to laugh at there was nothing slick. But we'll move on to the next game. Southampton 2, Man United 3. Martial becomes the first place since Federico Macheda to score in his first 2 games as Man United. Now, I think the first question, Colin, is: do you think he'll be as good as Macheda?
I think he's showing the glimpses of the potential that he showed in France.
What I will say is he's the first player to score 3 in the first 2 games since Louis Saha.
Mm-hmm.
So, another French player there.
Ryan for putting that in notes as well.
Actually, that one I knew from the game because the commentator said it.
I think he's starting to show, he's obviously showing some of the glimpses that he had in France. Will he keep up this sort of torrid pace? Probably not. Keep in mind that the Premier League season is different than the French season, right? He's going to tire out, I suspect, this year. I'm curious to see how long he can keep it up and keep pushing. But I think hopefully the last few weeks he's starting to win a few more people over that this wasn't some god awful panic buy by the United backroom to try and quiet down an angry fan base, that there was something real here. So hopefully that continues.
Fingers crossed. As you say, hopefully it does show that he wasn't panicked by. In my opinion, he was, but we're going to find out if I was right or wrong. Colin, do you want to just run us through the German scores?
Sure, we'll do a quick run through the Bundesliga. So we had Darmstadt 0, Bayern Munich 3, Cologne 1, Mönchengladbach 0, Hamburg 0, Eintracht Frankfurt 0, Werder Bremen 0, Ingolstadt 1, Wolfsburg 2, Hertha Berlin 0, Mainz 3, Hoffenheim 1, Stuttgart 0, Schalke 1, Dortmund 3, Leverkusen 0, Augsburg 2, Hanover 0.
I only saw one game this week, which was the Dortmund-Leverkusen.
Yeah, good game. Dortmund look really nice. I think you can argue that they should be 2 points clear at the top of the table as opposed to 2 goals clear and differential at the top of the table. But I'm eagerly awaiting the Dortmund-Bayern clash, because that's going to be a real, that's going to be where it was a couple of years ago. I mean, real serious big teams whacking into each other for supremacy in that league.
Yeah, I think what I did think through the game was that Dortmund were missing that striker, because I did think Januzaj didn't look like he belonged in the team, Colin, in my eyes, in that game. He tried hard, he did quite well, he won the penalty, the third goal, but I just thought I would like to see Aubameyang in that position, because there was a couple times the ball was put through for Januzaj and he just didn't have the legs to get to it, where if Aubameyang was on the wing and there was a poacher in the middle, then I think they would have got a couple more even. Leverkusen looked a bit short up front. They had Chicharito up front, which is sad to see. It's sad to see him left the Premier League. No doubt Ryan agrees with that. Yeah, mint. I'm dying. It's sad to see him go, but I think it was definitely a good game, and obviously Dortmund won 3-0, so you can't pounce on them too much, Colin, but I just think, I don't know, did you see the game? Did you think that it looked like Januzaj looked like the odd part?
I caught some of it on replay. I think Januzaj is still adjusting to the squad. You can tell he's not totally in sync with what's going on with the squad, but he'll get there.
There was a cutback which Kagawa's eyes lit up. He was so excited, and then he's like positioning himself ready to finish it, and then Januzaj comes running in between and just volleys it 20 yards over the bar. It was just like, oh, you idiot. But we'll go to the MLS, Major League Soccer, for you, Colin.
Sure.
Now, there's rumours that you're American, so do you want to run through these scores?
Oh, well, I will be happy to do it. So we have New England 2, Red Bulls 1 on Wednesday action, and NYCFC 2, Toronto 0, and then San Jose 1, Montreal 1. And then getting into the weekend action, Sporting Kansas City 3, FC Dallas 1.
Just seeing that Toronto game live. Sorry, not live. The highlights. As we're doing this show, I'm watching MLS highlights.
Nice.
Yep.
Toronto FC 3, Colorado 1, NYCFC 3, San Jose 2, DC United 1, Columbus Crew 2, Vancouver 0, Seattle 3, Montreal 3, New England 0, Chicago 0, Orlando City 1, Real Salt Lake 3, LA Galaxy 0, Portland Timbers 0, New York Red Bulls 2, and Philadelphia 2, Houston Dynamo 2. So the Red Bulls were the first team to clinch their spot in the MLS Cup playoffs and are now just behind goal differential to Vancouver for the Supporters' Shield. So the dream is alive, on the run in here that we can pick up at least a little more silverware this season.
What's your thoughts, Colin? What's your thoughts as a Red Bulls fan, sitting back now, looking at now the season's getting more and more closer and closer to the end? What's your thoughts on how it's gone?
I think this has been a fantastic. It's been a surprise season. I think coming into this season, there was no expectation the Red Bulls would be this. New coach, a lot of disruption. They moved a lot of players on, a lot of big changes. Henri, Cahill going out. They traded a lot of the defense away. Replaced Petke, an obviously popular coach. So no one had any expectation this was going to be a season at all. And Jesse Marsch has come in, put a really effective style of play in place. They went out and smartly bought players. The squad is fantastic, and I'm super excited. I think the other interesting side too is a month ago the world was ready to crown the LA Galaxy as champions already. 3 consecutive games, they can't get anything in the net with all the firepower. So it'll be interesting to see what Bruce Arena does out there.
Basically, that's Colin having a dig. You can't score, losers. Just thoughts, obviously, this week, Colin, it's all been confirmed about this Los Angeles Football Club as well.
It'll be good to have them back in with Atlanta. It'll be interesting to see if they can do the same sort of thing that's brewing in New York between NYCFC and the Red Bulls. Obviously, LA market.
This Atlanta build-up, it's coming across as being massive, Colin. I think they're going to be a well-supported club. Oh,
for sure. For sure. It's the Atlanta Falcons from the NFL is the back. They're the backers behind the club. So it's the Blank family. So that's the money and effort, and they know how to get people out. There's a rabid fan base behind the football team down there, so I would expect the same thing.
Looking forward to seeing how it develops and how the MLS continues to grow. But that's the end of tonight's show. I hope people have enjoyed it. Hope people have enjoyed our sitting on the couch talking some football. Thank you for joining us as always, Colin, from the United States of America.
Anytime. Always glad.
We say thank you for joining us. It's a part of the show. It's kind of just expected you would join us.
That's weird.
Ryan's ran away, so thanks for joining us, Ryan. But that's the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in, people, and we will all see you later on this week for the weekly FM show, which Colin has slowly become a part of as well, without even asking him.
Yep.